All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Alina, and I will be a research mentor. All right, guys. So let's just begin with the basics of what narrative review is. Narrative review, the way we think about it in research, is basically when you're writing a book. It's literally like writing a book or a chapter where you decide a specific topic, you decide a field you want to target, a field of medicine, a specific niche you want to target, and then you lay down the objectives that you would want to cover in order for the readers to know exactly what you're talking about or what you want, what information you want them to know, right? And then from there we go. So this is basically a narrative review, and it is the most basic version or basic type of a research that anybody would want to start with. And that's great that you guys are starting with narrative review, because the other it's this one will give you better understanding of how to write the manuscript and how to do the literature search, right? So there are a few steps on writing the narrative review. The first and the most important is knowing which field you want to target. You guys were either targeting cardiology or it's because the topic is cardiovascular and renal impact of a specific pharmacological therapy. So it's basically it's like a hybrid kind of a niche that you guys have picked up for the topic. And let's begin from there. Let me just share my screen and let me walk you through how to begin once you have decided the field or the niche that you want to target. Right? Just let me know once you can see my screen. I think it should be available. Okay. I think everybody can see my screen right now. Okay. Okay, good. So, like I said, we need to lay down some objectives when we're writing the narrative review, right? We know that it's kind of like a book or a chapter that you're writing. So it needs to follow a specific pattern or and we need to take it step by step. We can't just put all of the knowledge there, because when you're writing a narrative review, the literature out there, the medical literature out there, literally becomes something similar to the world is your oyster. You can write whatever you want and you can just put everything you feel like is relevant to your topic, but that's where you decide the specific pointers and objectives, like here. So the first and the most important section of a narrative review, which will set the tone for the rest of the paper and which will actually which will be the first impression for the journals or the readers or anywhere out there, right, is the introduction. Now, the introduction doesn't have to be too elaborate. It doesn't have to cover the entire paper. We're not going to give everything away here, right? So we will only be talking about the specific things of the topic, just about some pathology, some physiology, some definitions, and then from there, like for instance, where it's cardiovascular and renal. Let me just share the title of our research as well. Okay, so this is the I don't have that document right now. It's in the other computer. I will share that on the group. But it's cardiovascular and renal impact of pharmacological therapy, right? So what you can start with in the introduction section is that you can start writing with what each pharmacological agent is, what is the mechanism of action of that, and how does it impact different systems, whether it's the cardiovascular or the renal system, right? So this is basically what we're trying to target here, and that is what you're going to be writing in the introduction section. So introduction section is further divided into 3 parts. Okay, the first one is where you just talk about the physiology, the pathology, the definitions, and everything about whatever the topic is, right? The second one becomes the already existing data out there, existing investigative studies, primary researches out there that have already investigated this specific topic, written about this specific topic. And this is the second section of introduction actually is a way of letting the readers know that whatever we are writing in our paper is not something novel, because this is a review of existing data or existing literature, not something that we are coming up on our own, right? So the second section becomes that where you add several information or several studies that have already been conducted on the specific topic, right? The third section becomes why we felt there was a need to conduct this review. Why are we writing this paper? This is more of like an argument that we're presenting to the authors out there, the journals out there, or any of the readers out there who will be going through our paper later on, as to why we felt it was important that the healthcare community needed this paper. So that needs to be a very strong paragraph. It doesn't have to be too elaborate. Like I said, introduction can be, if this is font size 12 and this is Times New Roman, 1 page or 1.5 page is more than enough for introduction section of a narrative review. And the references, I'm not sure if you guys know what references are. So whenever you're writing something, any of the research papers, whether it's this type or any other type, it's important that you cite whatever you're writing. So when I say that, what I'm trying to say is here, you need to let the readers know where did you take this information from, which journal, what was the title of the paper, what were the authors, which year it was published in. All of that information is called a reference or a citation. And let me show you how we have that. So, all right. So this is a paper, okay? And the way we can cite is, usually they have this option right here. You can go here and this is the citation, right? You can change the style. We typically use AMA, right? And so this is the style, you know that these are the name of the authors. We have the title of the paper, then we have the journal, and then we have the year that it was published in, and the DOI, which is basically an ID of the paper or the article that was published, right? So this is a reference. And so whatever you will be writing in your specific sections, whether it's introduction or any other section in our paper, you need to cite it, whatever information you're taking. Then again, that's important that you paraphrase it. You do not have to copy paste it. This is very important that when we're writing something, writing any paper, we make sure that we extensively paraphrase it, so to avoid any sort of plagiarism that could arise later on, right? So this was the first section, or the introduction section. Next is the methods. The methods is basically describing on how we got the data or the studies, or where did we took the information from. So it doesn't have to be too elaborate either. It is literally just half a page or like 6 lines and a single paragraph. In this, you start with that a comprehensive research was conducted across several or 4 to 5 databases. Now, databases, when we're talking about databases here in medical and writing a research paper, these are basically like medical libraries where you can easily access the research papers that have already been published, right? And some of them are PubMed, Google Scholar, Embase, right? Let me just show you. I think I did show you right now, yeah, what PubMed actually looks. This is PubMed, okay? And let me take you to the home page. I think it'll be easier for you to navigate around that. So any paper you need on any topic, you can search it here and you will be able to access it and you will be able to read it. So these are basically databases that we will be talking about in the methods section, right? So excuse me. This is PubMed, which is the library, as it says here. So anything randomly, let's just go ahead and cardiovascular disease, right? And let's see what comes up. All right, so we have these many results, and you can manipulate the timeline you want. It's somewhere in the 20s, somewhere in the 90s, somewhere in the 2000s, in the last decade. You know, you can manipulate it and you'll see how the results change right here. You can see how the results change. So all of these papers here are anything that was even remotely related to this topic, you can find it here. This is what PubMed is. The other is Google Scholar. You can find that. You can easily search it up, and this is a database basically, right? So coming back to method section, this is basically how you will be beginning after you have talked about which databases you have used to write the method section. Okay, so we talked about which databases we use to get the studies or the information for each of the sections. Once we have that, then we tell them what keywords we use to search this. So keywords are also called mesh terms, right? They are basically these are the terms on the basis of which you come across the papers that you will use to actually write your specific sections, right? So you add like 4 to 5 keywords or mesh terms here. Then you talk about the inclusion criteria or the exclusion criteria of which studies you targeted or which studies you took the data from or the information from, right? So it's important that we focus on taking the information from the primary researchers. The primary researchers are basically the studies that were investigating in real time, whether they were retrospective, prospective cohorts, randomized controlled trials, or clinical trials. It's important that we make them the highlight of our paper and we take information from there because it gives a sense of credibility to the readers and the journals that this information is this is coming from a source that was a real-time research or a primary research, right? So you mentioned in the inclusion criteria that the studies that we included in our paper were primary researches, randomized controlled trials, observational studies, retrospective, prospective cohort studies. And because this is a narrative review, so we can also add that we took information from different literature reviews or different narrative reviews or meta-analysis or systematic reviews. So you can also take information from those type of studies in this study design, right? So once you have the inclusion criteria, you also mentioned that we only took the papers or that were in English language and the papers that were following the keywords that we have specified for our paper. So once you have all of that, then you go on and decide the exclusion criteria, right? So the exclusion criteria instantly becomes any of the studies that were either editorials, whether they were commentaries, website, web pages, anything that was not in English language, anything that was not that did not fit the criteria or the keywords that we lay down for our research. This becomes the exclusion criteria. But once you have this information, you have put it down in the methods section, then you add a statement that how many authors or how many members of the group were part of this specific literature search, which is very extensive. Then again, when we're deciding the topic for you, for your team, we did the literature search. So I will provide you the results once you're writing this specific section, whoever will be writing the section. So bunch of papers came up, bunch of results came up, and then we excluded as to what the topic needs to be. So I will guide you with that. So this is basically the method section, right? It's very precise. Let me also show you. This is a paper that we published, and so this is also narrative review, and this is the introduction section. You can see how this is not too elaborate, just to the point, talking about exactly what the topic was and just the physiology of it and everything, right? Just 3 paragraphs, right? And then we have the method section. You can see how it's just a single paragraph. I think it's half a page. So this is exactly what I was talking about, where you enter, let's just start from the top, you enter the databases, you enter the years. So, okay, so I think the shortest way of actually deciding from which year to which year we took the studies or whatever data that we collected for writing our paper, is that once everyone has done writing their specific sections and everybody has compiled the references, the citations, or wherever the information came from. And then we decide what was the earliest and what was the oldest and what was the latest paper that we had taken the information from, and we can easily define that specific timeline for it. We don't have to actually go through the entire timeline and all the papers that have been published since 1998 or whatever year we decide, right? So this gives us this actually gives us a greater margin to collect more data that has been out there on specific topics, right? So you have then, once you have the databases, you have the year, you have the mesh terms, the keywords right here, and then you further you further define what were the original number of articles, then what was the search process. So I can give you this information. I have this because we decided the topic for you guys, and then you decide which type of papers were included. You start from here. We included articles that were published in English and translated into English. So this is basically how you write the methods section. Okay, so once these two sections have been written, the rest of the paper is all of the objectives that we laid down. So once we have a topic, we decide which areas of that topic we want to focus, right? And then what areas of the topic, once we write, will give a better understanding of that specific research topic that we're trying to portray to, or get it published with the healthcare community out there, right? So then you can see how here, after section 2, section 3 onwards, we have specifically divided or actually we have specified each of the objective, like whether it was overview of the common causes. So this is a different paper, but I have this right now in my computer. So, and then we have another section talking about another subheading or heading. So this is how it basically goes, right? So before I move forward with it, does anybody have any questions? Anything so far? Because I think this is something new. If this is something new for you guys, so I need to know if anybody has any confusion, anything you want to talk about, anything you want me to repeat or maybe slow down a little bit. Anyone? So far everybody understands what narrative review is and how we're beginning and objectives and everything, right? Okay, cool, perfect. That's great. Good. Thank you. All right. Let's continue. Okay, so like I said, the rest of the sections are just you have the pointers. I will be giving you the pointers. You just need to write on each of the pointers. It's very important that we maintain the word limit. The entire paper, which is including the headings, subheadings, it needs to be under 3,000 words, right? And so it's important that each of the sections, I think there will be about 7 to 8 sections. So some of the sections could go to like 700 words because I can tell, right? Even if you see this specific document, you can see that section 5 had a lot more number of points for the objective compared to all the other sections, right? You can see right here. So this specific section or sections that are similar to this one that have a lot of pointers, that means they need a more comprehensive version of that specific section to be discussed in the paper. So it could exceed like 750 words or 700 words, but that's just it. Or I think 600 is still pushing because there are so many sections and we need to make sure that we need to provide some information for each of the section, right? We need to be fair with all of the sections. So I think 400 words to 500 words per section is more than enough. And if we feel in the end that we need to amp up the words a little bit, we'll work around that. But mainly this is the word limit that I would suggest. And references per section, like I mentioned, that whatever information you're taking from any of the papers out there to write your specific section, it is important you cite it. So the references or the number of studies you're taking information from should not exceed like 10 or 9 per section, right? 8 or 7 is also perfect. I think that's more than enough. But if a section is having a lot of pointers like this one, I think 10 is more than enough. 10 references, right? So now that I've discussed this, let me just let me come to the point that how you will write each of the section. So for instance, this is our paper, right? I don't have it, but let me just, okay, this is our paper. And one of you has chosen, for instance, section 3 to write it. How will you actually start writing this specific section? So the first one says, how do you begin? For the first 3 lines, you talk about overview of the common causes of acute abdomen. So if this was our paper, the way you will write was just talk a little bit about, in 3 to 4 lines, what are the common causes, lay them down, just list them, and then specifically 3.1 onwards, you talk about the inflammatory causes. So you will have further subheadings of this specific heading, is appendicitis or cholecystitis, diverticulitis, right? So this becomes further a classification of a single subheading. So you will write a little bit about each of the objective or each of the term that has been actually discussed here in each of the pointers. The way you will write it is once you have talked about it, the physiology, pathology, whatever, once you have talked about that, you need to talk about the existing data out there, right? So once you have defined it, you go like, there are some researches conducted on this topic. A clinical trial was conducted that investigated the effects of appendicitis or the inflammatory causes of appendicitis, and just talk about the pathology a little bit. Then you talk about, then in the same specific part, you further define it. Another clinical study was conducted where you write about another clinical study that you took the information from, and you talk about there were these many number of patients in that study, and they were evaluated on these specific outcomes. And so this is all the information that you can easily find in on PubMed once you're talking about your specific section. And once you have that information, you can go through the introduction section of those studies, you can go through the discussion section of those studies, and you can take the chunk of information that you need for your specific pointer, right? So that will help you write it. So what I'm actually trying to encourage you guys to do is take information from primary research. Yeah, you can take information from existing literature reviews. I'm sure there are a lot of comprehensive narrative reviews out there that are talking about the exact same topic or a similar topic. I want you to also take information from these primary researchers because they are just real-time research, and it gives a sense of credibility to our paper, right? So let's just, this is a clinical trial, right? You can scroll down to the discussion section of it, and any information you need for your paper or for your section, you will find it in the discussion section or the introduction section of any of the study. You do not need to go through the results or methods or anything else, but this is how you will navigate around a clinical trial or an observational studies, right? So these are the basically these were the basics of narrative review on how to write it, how to begin with it. The way I will do it is I will send the document on the group, right? And each of you can decide which section you want to write based on your convenience and whatever you are comfortable with, whatever topic or section of whatever subtopic of our study. And you can select that and you can post that on the group with your name. Then I will list that down and we can begin from there. Then I will set a deadline that will be about, I think, 1 week from the day everybody has selected a specific section. And once you have, each of you have written your sections, there will be a link that will be posted. That's a Microsoft Word online link, and each of you can upload your work on it. I will go through that work. I will make the comments that are necessary, or any edits that need to be made, any formatting that needs to be done to the paper. And once you're done with that, then finally we will take the paper to submission. This paper is this module is actually supposed to be 4 to 5 weeks, so we need to submit to the journal within the span of 4 to 5 weeks. So that's why there is just a 1 week deadline for you guys to just write the paper. But this is the first round of writing. So any edits that I suggest. After that, I will give you like 2 to 3 days more, or like 3 to 4 days to fix some of the edits that I will be suggesting. So that is how we will go about it. When you're writing a narrative review, it's important that we also focus on the figures or the diagrams, as we call it. So let me show you what I'm talking about when I say diagrams. So this was a paper that we published with Annals of Medicine and Surgery. And when you're talking about figure in a narrative review, you do not need it. You really don't need it, but the journals ask for it because it makes a paper look fancy, and the human mind just works in a way that it needs things illustrated in an animated version of things for them to be actually reading that specific paper. So this is actually not something that we took from Google Images or any of the other existing studies out there. We made this figure on our own using Canva. Some of the people also use BioRender. You can also use Photoshop to make a figure that's similar to this, and then you can write a little bit of a description here. Any creativity from your side will be appreciated. Anyone who has any ideas for our paper, that would be great. You can see how we basically just turned one of the sections into a specific diagram or a specific figure. So this is something that at least 2 will be good, I think, for the paper. 2 to 3 are, I think that will be great for the paper, right? So similarly, we also need to add some tables, right? So let me just show you what a table would typically look like. Anything that is describing any information in any of the sections, whether it's pharmacotherapy or studies or anything population, you can see, right. So this is a table that we had to make, which doesn't make sense because we had written everything that is mentioned here in a specific section. But then again, this was necessary, right? So you can see how this is a summary of studies on the effect of microbiota, right? So we had a section where we wrote about the effect of microbiota on the pediatric endocrine system, right? Where we had several studies. We took the information from several studies. Some of them were reviews, some of them were case control studies, right? And so we just illustrated all of that data in a table form and just made sense out of it in some way. So this is an example of the way you can present your work in a table form. You can also, I think, write dosage, maybe anything you guys come up. I think we can use AI as an assistive agent here, so then again, I do not want you guys to use ChatGPT or any of the AI tools out there to write your sections, because that would be considered as a plagiarism, and it is detected once we run the paper through the software that we have for detecting plagiarism or AI language. And most of the journals are actually working towards rejecting a paper once they detect any sort of AI written language. So it's better that we don't do it. Even if you're writing through ChatGPT, extensively paraphrase it in a way that it doesn't sound like it's some sort of a bot language that has been used. So you can use Grammarly for paraphrasing. Premium version is better, right? You can use Quillbot, but then again, a premium version is better. And even when you're using Quillbot, it's important that you add some sort of a human element to it. You choose some words, you replace some words that sound a little less AI, right? So that is something that I need to talk about, is something very important, because some of the papers that we were submitting, there was a lot of AI language, and once we put it through our software, it was like 60% AI, and we had to go through several rounds of paraphrasing for that paper. So this is what a narrative review typically is, and this is what I would want. This is basically what I'm expecting from you all. And any information that you need, you can easily find that out. You can just start with, how about if someone has a specific topic or a section, and you've taken a section and you need to write about it. So how do you basically begin, right? So let's just take this section, right? And you copy it and you use whatever search engine you're using, and whatever information comes up, you take that information, whatever studies that are coming up, you can see right here how a bunch of studies are going to come up, and you can take the information from these studies and just talk about whatever is highlighted or laid down in your specific objective, right? So does anybody have any questions? Okay, nobody has any questions. I don't think I was that clear throughout the entire meeting. Anything anybody wants to discuss? Anything at all? Okay, okay, that's okay. Right, so this was basically the meeting, and we will have a couple more sessions so that I can walk you guys through each and every step. I do not want you guys to get lost. It does happen sometimes when you're writing a narrative review. It's important that you stay on track. From time and time again, I would want you guys to go through the title of the paper and the objective that you're writing about, because it's so easy to get lost when you're writing a narrative review. So and make sure that you don't write about somebody else's section, because then that'll be just repetition throughout the paper and extra set of words and extra information that we do not need, right? So that is something that you guys need to focus on, and that is pretty much it for narrative review. So each of the section will be divided among all of the members of the group, right? And then other tasks are tables will be a task, figures will be a task, right? Because that will require a lot of, I think, whoever will be using BioRender, Canva, Photoshop, that will become a task. Then referencing, right? So there is a software that we use for reference management. I will tell you guys on how to use that software. I think we should have another meeting for that, so it's easier for you guys to navigate around it, right? So I will have another meeting, and the software that we use for reference management or the citations is basically Mendeley software. This is something I prefer. There are more softwares out there like EndNote, but I find Mendeley is more user-friendly, so I use that, and I tend to teach that to people who are starting with the paper because it's simpler, right? So I will do that, and I think we will have the meeting next week. But for now, I will want you guys to choose a section and start writing. Any questions you have regarding your sections, you can reach out to me on the group, and you can tag me, or you can even privately message me. That's totally fine. Anything you want to ask, anything you're lost, any point that you're lost with, just tell me or let me know. I will guide you. We can have conference calls, we can have WhatsApp conference calls, and we can even have Teams meeting. If anyone is confused about anything you want to ask, we can totally accommodate that, right? So right. So nobody has any questions? I'm gonna ask one more time because I'm just Anjali, do you have any questions? Or just randomly.
No, I think I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you
Okay,
for
okay.
elaborating on everything.
All right, Daniel, Rihan, Yusuf,
Yes,
anybody?
I have a quick question. So let's say if I choose like the methodology section,
Mhm, mhm.
and I guess that before um, everyone else start writing the next sections, discussion, and well, the rest of the narrative review, we need to have the same pool of the studies, right?
Right, right.
So I guess that first we need to do the conduct the search of the articles, the primary research, RCTs, all of that before writing the rest of the sections, I believe so.
Okay, so there is one thing. There there are two ways of writing narrative review. If you want your project to go on for 4 months or 2 months, that's what you do. You first lay down a groundwork of what type of studies you need. You list them down. You have Google Drive, and you upload all of the PDF files over there. And each of the authors or each of the members can pick from that specific pool of studies and start writing the papers. But that is a really, really long process. And I do not, I have never done that because whenever I was writing a paper, I think I have about 30 plus papers and most of them are narrative reviews. I have never, ever done that. And it is never advised. So the way we do it is everybody write their own section. Everybody choose their own studies, whatever they took the information, wherever they took the information from. And once whoever is doing the referencing at the end of the project, they already will list down all of the references. So if you have 67 references, then you instantly know that you have 67 studies, right? So those 67 studies will become the number. And you can see from which year to which year, what was the latest and what is the oldest year that the studies were published in. So if the oldest study is from the 80s, you can just put down 80s, whatever. And if the earliest or the latest is from 2025 or 2026, you can just put that down in that we search from the year this to this. And then we have these many articles, and then we tailor it down to these many articles. And then this was the final number of 67 studies with the final number of the articles that we had. And then we wrote from this, or each of the authors took the information from these specific number of studies. This is the best way to do it, and this is what I suggest, personally speaking. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Regarding the keywords for the method section, I will tell you the keywords, but I would want whoever will be writing the method section, I would want you to come up with the keywords and let me know. This is like a learning experience, I think. And then I can just eliminate some and add some if I want to, but it's important that you come up with it first, right? So that is about it. We will have a conclusion section for the narrative review. Then again, we're not giving a statement there because we're not investigating anything, but just a little bit of summary about the whole paper. It doesn't have to be too elaborate. It will be similar to the meta section, like the size of the meta section, it'll be similar to that. So that will be in the end. That is pretty much it for the rest of the narrative review. And I hope I was clear about the primary research I was talking about, right? The kind of studies you need to select, the clinical trials and everything. But it doesn't mean that you can take the information from narrative reviews or literature reviews or systematic reviews. You can totally take the information from there as well. But also, so if you have, for instance, if someone is talking about section 4, section 5, and I would want at least 4 to 5 clinical trials or observational studies mentioned in it. Now, I don't want you to put all of the data, the p-values, the risk ratio, the mean values and everything, because these studies are reporting on all those kind of numerical data. That would be too complex for narrative review, but just a little bit of what they were talking about, what they concluded, what they were investigating, something in like 2 to 3 lines per clinical trial would be, I think that would be amazing for each of the sections, right? So this was it. Yes, once you're writing your sections and uploading your work on the Microsoft Word link that I'll be posting on the group, what you can do is, if, for instance, let me just walk you through it. I'm sure you guys know how to use Word, but I'm just still walking you through it. So if, for instance, someone had this whole thing is someone has written this in their own private document. So, and this was taken from a study. You select it, you select the comment, and then you add the link of the study right here. This is important because whoever will be doing the referencing at the end of the project, they will be able to take that link, download that paper, and then generate the reference using the software that we will be using. I will tell you guys how to use that software. So, and it's very simple. I'll walk you through it. So yeah, just do that. Whatever you're writing, whichever study you're taking the information from, just add the link as a comment to that specific statement, sentence. And it's very important that if you are stating something important, if you are making if you're claiming any information in your specific section, it's important you let the readers know that this is not something that you're claiming on your own. It is taken from somewhere, a published research paper out there. So just, even if it's like 2 sentences or like 1 single statement, cite it. Add the link as a comment to that specific sentence, right? So this was it. I think that is, I think for the first session, I think this is more than enough information for you guys just to begin with. I will be posting the document on the group right after the meeting, and you guys can select whatever section you want to write. Okay, that's about it. Anybody have any questions? Rehan, you were saying something, right?
Yeah, as I'm new to this research, I don't know which topic, which section to choose, or I don't know which I'm gonna. Will you be assigning them to me?
I could do that. Or you could, I know, I know this is like a very new concept for everybody who is writing the paper, but if you see here, these are just like objectives. You can use each of any of the pointers. I have laid down all of the pointers for you guys, so it's easier for you guys to just take it step by step. You can choose any section you need and just start writing. If you face any trouble with it, just reach out to me. I will guide you on how to, just whatever section resonates with you, just choose it, right? So whether it's just the introduction section, you will be writing about the introduction of the topic that we are basically talking about. So I think we can go from there. So if you are new to that, I think you can start with introduction, but I think you should give yourself more credit and go for another section as well, right? And just for starters, just choose 1 single section. So once everybody has chosen at least 1 section or a single task, then we can have other people like taking more tasks. So yeah, so we don't have anyone left who doesn't get any tasks in the end, right? So that is about it. Did I answer your question, Rehan? Okay. All right. Yusuf, do you have any questions? No?
No, I'm good.
Okay, okay. Then is it Fazan? Is it Fazan?
Yeah.
Do you
Can
have
you
any
hear me?
questions? Anything? Yeah.
Not at the moment, but when I start the work, I'll have a lot of questions.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. All right. So let's just end the meeting right here. The recording will be available on the group. I think by tomorrow, the recording will be posted on the group. You guys can go through it if you want, obviously at, yeah, so I'll just post it, right? So let's just end the meeting, right? And thank you all for joining. Any contribution or participation each of you are making will be noted, and it will help us decide the authorship at the end, right? So that's about it. And thank you so much, everybody. You guys have a great day and good night.